an old chairman of the board said, we'll never have an ATM in this town, never. And then, of course, now we've got one on every corner. And I truly just try to be a source of encouragement to community bankers across the country that if a rural country boy from Northwest Alabama who's got an accent that sometimes is hard to understand can do this, then anybody across this country has the same opportunity.
Welcome to the Operate Podcast, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at company building from the perspective of the builders themselves. This is how we operate.
Welcome to the Operate Podcast. I'm Kerry Ransom. Today's episode is sponsored by BankTech Ventures, the first strategic investment fund designed by the community banking industry for community bank innovation and investment. BankTech identifies leading products and technologies for community banks and works with the founders and management teams to maximize their impact for community banks and their businesses. If you're a bank looking to innovate, invest in the future, or a founder who wants to work with community banks, reach out to BankTech Ventures at banktechventures.com. Well, my guest today is Brad Bolton, the immediate past chairman of the Independent Community Bankers of America, or also known as ICBA. He's an active, vocal, and respected leader in the community banking industry, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to meet and work with Brad over the last couple of years. He also is active as a banker. He's president and CEO of Community Spirit Bank, which is based in Red Bay, Alabama, and he is the epitome of a active local community leader. He's engaged fully there. He's always sharing great photos on social media of himself in the community. And it takes me back to where I grew up, as many know, in a small town in Indiana. And I think epitomizes what I love about community banking all in all. And, you know, he's a second generation community banker. He lives and he leads that way. And I know we're going to have a ton to talk about today. Brad, really excited to have you here. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start. It's been, we're coming up to the midpoint of our year, and it has been an interesting year to be a banker. That is for sure, or half year. Although I guess every year is, but this one in particular. So let's start with, I'll call it the state of community banking. How are you feeling about being a community banker right now?
Well, that's easy to answer. I'm optimistic about the community bank franchise. I'm just so excited for what we stand for every day in the communities across this nation.
Yes.
And truly, we have been on a roller coaster since the failure of large and risky institutions such as Silicon Valley and First Republic and Signature Banks. But we as community bankers have really used that to truly differentiate who we are and who we serve, and show the world, show America that we are systemically important to every main street across this country.
Yes.
And community bankers have certainly been successful in that. We've had over 2,000 news mentions across the country affirming that community banks are safe and sound, and certainly are in no way resemble these large and risky institutions. So I feel great about where we are, where we're positioned to be because of who we serve, and that's Main Street USA.
Yeah, that's a great place to jump off. And talking to I know you travel the country a ton and you're meeting with your fellow bankers. I'm curious how many, I've had a couple mention it to me, how many of your colleagues have said, I did have big customers calling me. I had other customers that were maybe at other banks calling me, and really trying to better understand that difference that you just described. How pervasive are you seeing that activity is?
Surprisingly small number. So we had very little deposit flight out of community banks during this crisis. Obviously, you had some of your larger deposit customers may have called and just say, hey, am I insured? Or what's the standing or whatnot? And community bankers, because we work with our customers on that one-to-one basis, they trust us. They know we're in the community. We see them at the grocery store, at the football game, at church. They know we're here for the long haul. So there has certainly been in some of our areas where maybe you're competing directly against a too big to fail firm, that they have a little bit more of that they have to deal with. But for the most part, I would say it's been a non-issue. We've said it's just been another normal day on Main Street for all of our community banks because of that one-on-one relationship that we have with our customers.
Do you think that we'll see, as a national, business and even maybe consumer community, that people will increasingly, because of what's happened, seems like the awareness is higher? Do you think we're going to continue to see increasing interest from people in knowing what's going on with the underlying institutions that they are banking with, more than we have in the last decade or so?
We're attempting to recraft that narrative through ICBA. We launched our national campaign during the middle of all of this, which was truly years in the making and vetted to help differentiate and to elevate the community banking franchise in the minds of consumers and small businesses by reminding them that where they bank truly does matter. And so we're able to use those resources nationwide through our campaign to truly set us apart from too big to fail firms, from credit unions, and just telling the value of the community bank franchise. So obviously you can't turn on the news every day without some aspect of banking being in the news. So I'm sure that consumers will want to have those conversations, and they can have them always with their local community banker. They don't have to hope to get a call back. They call me, they're going to get the president of the bank, and that's usually the way it is at any community banker across this nation.
That's right. And I think that to me is exciting, to think that we'll return to those kinds of values that I grew up with. I grew up in a retail family business. We were involved in a community bank. I knew several of the bank presidents as I was growing up. And yeah, when people came in to our store, they wanted to often talk to my dad. And I get it. And I think that there's something about that hopefully we will see a return to more appreciation and value in that.
I think if a consumer or small business ever experiences that once, that's all it will take, So those that are banking with large banks and they can't get to the higher ups, try a community bank. Go to banklocally.org and find you a local community bank. And I promise you, they're going to love on you just like I do my customers.
As just a follow-up, how important do you think it will become that people understand where the money they deposit in their bank is going, right? If it is in a local community, the money primarily moves within that community. Do you think that will become increasingly of interest to people?
I really do. I think people want to see that they are part of, or they're contributing to something bigger than themselves, especially the next generation that we're dealing with. And there is no better model than the community bank model that truly does that. Every dollar that we make here is reinvested back into our local communities. And so there's just nothing any more special than the community bank franchise because of what we all collectively do across this nation of building better communities each and every day.
Well, we had, and you were there, we had our annual Bank Tech Summit recently, and we had well over 100 people, bankers, bank technology companies, and we talked a lot about how you mentioned this a bit ago. The deposit environment has been not very competitive or interesting for a long time because of interest rates. Now it's become competitive so quickly because of the rapid rise in interest rates. What level of energy are you seeing from your peers in a willingness to compete in this environment? Because it has become way more competitive, and obviously we've tried to do some things to create some competing solutions. But what are you hearing from your peers about how to compete in this environment?
Well, first of all, it was great to be at the Bank Tech Venture Summit. I left inspired, to see all the solutions that are tailored just for community banks. I left and went home and told my peers about it as well. And I believe that all of my peers throughout the community banking sector really are excited about the opportunities that your solutions provide, because we've all got core fatigue. It's really tough dealing with our core sometimes. So we've got a unique opportunity to help, bring best-in-class solutions to our community banks using services like yours, using Think Tech Accelerator that ICBA powers there in Atlanta, all of which will help us to, have those best-in-class technology partnerships, but never losing sight of the relationship that backs it up. And so that's truly the best of both worlds for us. And I think that's why community bankers are excited about the future of our industry using fintech-related partnerships to serve our customers better.
Yeah, I obviously totally agree. I mean, the good thing too is that the cost of these kinds of investments continues to come down, and the value that can be derived can happen much more quickly, right? Gone are the days of an 18-month technology project in a community bank. It just can't work that way anymore. And I think everyone, to your point, they're fatigued. The value equation hasn't worked. And the great thing is there are a lot of really compelling entrepreneurs out working on solutions that have that interest and commitment to help community banks to survive and thrive in the years ahead. So it's a great time to be right in the middle of it, like we both are.
I think the great thing that y'all do, we as bankers, we're just surviving the day. You're meeting our customers' needs, making sure the balance sheet is healthy, and y'all are, down the road looking around the curve to see what's coming next. And so it's great to have partnerships like y'all that you can see what's coming and help us, guide and advance our bank forward.
Well, we certainly appreciate it, and I think want to continue to make this tent as big as we can to let as many banks in to participate. Just like you mentioned, the ICBA Think Tech Accelerator that continues to make that as low friction and easy to access as possible. So I mentioned, you've been super involved in the ICBA. I'm sure it's been incredibly valuable for you personally and for your bank. You mentioned the new campaign that's been launched on banking locally. As you think about the current priorities that the ICBA has to support community bank, what are really those key priorities for the organization?
Well, it has been an absolute honor for me to be able to go through the chairs of ICBA. And ICBA's mission says it all: it's to create and promote an environment where community banks flourish. And we serve only community banks, so we don't have to worry about having split loyalties with anyone else. Our mission every day is to advance community bank success. And that all starts with differentiating our industry, that we are different than big banks. We are different than credit unions. We're different than farm credit. And we want tiered regulations that respects and values that relationship-focused manner of doing business. Is what really backs up the community banking model. And so some of our priorities, obviously, is deposit insurance reform. We're not done with that battle. There's a lot of things that are going on out there right now. We were the only national trade association who advocated for a special assessment exemption for community banks. And so far, the FDIC has granted that. We got to make sure that we're making our voice heard on that, to comment that we support that we shouldn't have to pay for the spends of those large and risky institutions. And then we've got some pro-community banking bills before Congress right now. It begins with the ACRE Act, and that's accessing credit in rural America, and that would allow us to level the playing field with farm credit and the tax avoidance credit unions on a lot of loans that we make on home loans and on farm loans. We want to close the ILC loophole. That's another one that's really important to us, to separate banking and commerce from mixing, getting access to the payment system. Safe Banking Act. Cannabis banking is legal cannabis is legal in 38 states across this country, but yet you can't bank them legally because of the federal government. So that's a big priority. And now this clawback bill that Congress is evaluating, if a bank fails, they could claw back the compensation on executives. So those we want to make sure doesn't disproportionately affect community banks' ability to retain and attract talent in the future. Sure. We're obviously focused on overdraft reforms, this Section 1071 of the Dodd-Frank Act of small business data collection, and again, leveling the playing field and just tiered regulations. That's really, in a nutshell, what we're focused on. And me here in Red Bay, Alabama, I can't do that on my own. And that's why I've got that team of lobbyists and team members in DC that's working for my bank and every community bank across this country every day. And so that's why I'm passionate about ICBA. That's why I'm passionate about what we do to protect the community bank franchise every day.
Great, detailed update on priorities. That's super helpful. I don't think it's well understood by people that increasing regulation disproportionately penalizes smaller players in any industry.
Absolutely.
But certainly in banking, maybe more than any other. And I mean, do you see or do you envision a world of tiered regulation? Totally makes sense. But do you envision any world in which things kind of come back to a sense of, I don't know, letting more market factors help regulate and govern some of these things?
That's what we fight for each and every day, you know, because let's face it, we've lost around 4,000 some odd community banks since the Great Recession alone, just in a short 10-year period of time. And I take that personally, that over-regulation has really led to that. And it may be that, you know, smaller banks that you may not have the resources that they think they don't have to compete. And it's easy just to, you know, call up a consultant, and then next thing you know, the consultant doesn't have the bank's best interest at heart or the communities. They just want to sell it, make a quick buck, right? So we're trying to shift our mindset there as well, just to tell community bankers across this country that we're fighting for you, and get in the fight with us so that you can protect your communities. And hey, as long as we're making our voice heard, we're making a difference, because there is no one in Washington, D.C. who has a better reputation, that is more respected than community bankers. And so we just got to keep telling that story. And we've already saw how making that voice heard has allowed us to have tiered regulations, have carve-outs, have exemptions, but it won't happen if we don't continue to tell our story. So that's the key.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, the other thing that it's really unfortunate in my mind always is it's just not as fun, right? I mean, business at its core is about people doing business with other people. Yeah. And when these impediments get put in between the people's ability to build high trust, long-standing relationships, it's just not nearly as fun. You're losing the essence of why we all do this in the first place.
You know, I actually have had more fun getting more involved in ICBA, advocating for that Main Street priorities on behalf of my customers, because most of my customers, they're not members of trade associations.
That's right.
They have no voice. So I'm truly, and other community bankers are truly, the voice of our customers, making their needs heard, that we cannot allow regulations to extinguish that relationship that we have with our customers. So we're the first line of defense. And so it truly excites me that I get to act on their behalf. So I'm still having fun, Kerry, even though it's more frustrating. I'm having fun just helping defend my customers.
Yeah, I know you do. I mean, and you are a quintessential optimist business leader. We need more of you out there for sure, Brad. So that's absolutely why, you know, it's inspiring to have you on, and it inspires me to keep showing up every day. So I applaud you and appreciate you for that. Well, you know, outside of just the ICBA itself, you have this whole kind of ecosystem of partners as well. I mean, we obviously are one at BankTech Ventures. What do you feel like others can do, like us, like others that are partners of the ICBA, and trying to advocate for Main Street and more businesses to be successful in our country, small businesses to start, et cetera? What are the things that you feel like we can do to be more helpful to community banks?
Well, I think just paying attention to what's facing us, as you are right now. You know, your focus up at your summit was on deposit acquisition and deposit retention solutions, because that is important to us. You know, we're competing not only against large banks, but we're competing against the Amazons and the Apples of the world that can instantaneously just offer some deposit accounts and suck up billions of dollars, as you gave that example, I believe, while we were up there. So We just got guidance yesterday on CRE exposures and working proactively with borrowers. So as your fintech company starts thinking, oh, well, how can I help them work with those borrowers? How can I automate a process that I can get ahead and provide solutions for them to monitor CRE exposures in real time? How can I figure out a way to help community banks open up deposit accounts frictionless, just to maintain those. And obviously, I mentioned a minute ago, Section 1071. We're trying to still get a carve out of that, but that's going to be the rule that we've got to live by. And there's a litany of data that we've got to collect from our customers. So we need a solution on how to make that seamless so that we're not putting all that burden on our customers. We're working with them. So to me, it's just about paying attention to what's facing us, listening to us when we come to your summits, whenever we go to ICBA's accelerator program. And I think we do it. That's a cool thing that I love about our accelerator program is it's truly vetted by our community bankers to solve real world pain points and problems that we face. So those things, we both are nimble. We both can work well together to do that, to help provide solutions to our community banks.
Well, and it's a good I think transition to what one of the other things that I'm curious about is I think about this idea of embracing and managing change. From where I sit, I look at banking today and say banking's a digital business, right? There still are branches open. There still are people that do choose to sort of come into a retail experience like that. But what's even in that retail experience or branch experience is going to continue to change in the years to come. And so how do you work with your peers to think about this, I'll call it next generation of talent, next generation of customers, people who are digitally native, which really is a change. It's a change.
Yeah.
Like how does that happen successfully in your mind?
Well, this has ironically been a huge topic of mine as I've traveled the country. And that's reminding community banks how important it is for us to stay independent. And the only way we can do that is by training up the next generation of leaders. You probably heard me say community continuator till you're sick of hearing it, and others may have been, but I hope I do make them sick of that, because at least it's in their mind that they've got to name who their next community continuator is. And most likely, it's going to be a next generation leader who comes from a different mindset. They grew up with this in their hand, right? They grew up with their phone in their hand, doing everything on their phone, never balancing a checkbook, just looking to see what the app says that they have. So for me, it begins there. We at ICBA are trying to train up those next generations through our education focus, which is one of our primary pillars. So we're working together with, putting bankers in classrooms and just letting it be known that we want community banking to be a career choice that the next generation truly does choose. And so that's where it starts, is just encouraging them to get involved and seek out a career in community banking. And then because of their background, they'll help elevate their brand. I did it whenever I was here with my team. I took over from my dad in 2011, and I wanted to always respect the legacy that this old bank had, but I wanted to set forth how we was going to continue to serve our next generation customers. And so any bank can do that.
Do you think, given the pace of change that we're facing and we live with, that means bringing that community continuator to the table sooner than maybe the last generation? So instead of applying the traditional kind of apprentice timeframe and approach, maybe thinking a little bit differently about how to include them in that process. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I think if you've got a star in your organization, you need to get them involved, send them to ICBA's Lead Forward Summit, send them to community bank centered and focused leadership learning, and give them a seat at the table. Put them on important committees inside the bank. Let them start doing some reports that they report directly to the board, so that they're getting the buy-in and they're getting a holistic picture of what running a bank really is, and then giving them a path to success. Because I think that's one thing that we could do a better job on, is letting them know that there is a path. I'm not going to be here forever. You could be one of our next generation if you do this, that, and the other, and craft a path for success for them. So you definitely, my dad's generation, it was, you show up every day, you're the first one there, you're the last one to leave, and you work hard, the rest will have to take care of itself if you stick around long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so this next generation, I think they want to know that they've got a path forward.
Yeah, that insight there is so powerful, I think, Brad, because I don't think that is universally understood yet, but that is super important to tell that story, particularly to appeal to that next generation to consider community banking, to your point, on being a viable career path, to be even, an employer of consideration.
Yeah,
right? You want to move
absolutely.
from at least get that, and then becoming an employer of choice is obviously your ideal, but those stories, and I think you're so good at that, and hopefully are inspiring and leading some of your peers out there, because telling those stories of opportunity and success will be critical.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, when you talk to your peers about their progress in areas of technology and understanding it, in transforming, the topic we talk a lot about is digital transformation. How do you feel like they feel about their progress?
I think it's a work in progress. I think we know that we have made great strides. My dad reminds us of the stories whenever an old chairman of the board said, "We'll never have an ATM in this town, never." And then, of course, now we've got one on every corner, and they're taking deposits and they're taking cash and so on and so forth. So I think we just got to continue to move the ball forward and listen to our customers and see what they're asking for. Look at their digital habits that they have. And just be nimble. That's what we are as community bankers. Right. We're already responsive to our needs. We're already nimble and reacting to our customers. So we got to take that same mentality when it comes to our fintech and our digital offerings, to always keep moving the ball down the field and just recognizing how can we serve them better, and entrench them into our digital platforms. Because let's face it, I'm trying to, I'm opening up a new office here locally, and it's hard to get folks to move unless you just someone screws up something at the other bank, because you got all these automatic deposits, you got, internet banking, all this kind of stuff. So you can get someone to be really sticky if you do a really good job of providing digital footprint right there at their fingertips.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think this, which is, you just said, is like, people generally don't want to have to think about their bank. They just want it to work in support of their life, their business, et cetera. And if you embed into that, you're going to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think, there's been some data that we have monitored that 73% of consumers believe that companies should understand their unique needs and expectations. And 56% think that they should have a personalized service. So with banking with a community bank, you get the best of both worlds, truly. That's because right. you do have the best in class on the digital footprint, plus the relationship to back it up, that you can call us on the weekend and say, "Hey, my debit card's not working," or I can't get logged into our internet banking, and actually talk to a real live person. And how refreshing is that in these days and times,
That's right. That's right. Well, it's funny. I've even speculated that community banks have the highest potential to be the most secure, because it's human to human interaction. And what could be more secure than, I definitely know this is Brad who is banking with me right now, right? And that just gives you an advantage over any system that you could create. Yeah. One of the topics that I get a lot of questions from your peers is benchmarking, where they will say, "Kerry, can you give me a benchmark? How am I doing? How's our bank doing relative to our peers, or in some cases relative to where we should be?"
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a difficult question. How do you think about when they ask you, how are we doing, Brad, versus where we should be, or others, in a benchmarking that progress?
It is a really tough question when it comes to the technology forefront, because it's easy for us to all pull up our UBPRs and see all those old time metrics of what we're doing. And so really you've got to form relationships with, fintech providers, and certainly with our peers. I always encourage folks to get involved in our Think Tech program, to come to ICBA Live, to form relationships with community bankers across this country. we've just launched an online community at ICBA where the community bankers can talk to each other about things that are facing each of us to get real time, feedback on, hey, I'm wanting to do this. What experience have you had there? So it truly just starts with peer groups, informal, if nothing else, just to say, hey, I've launched a new banking app, or I'm trying to launch this new deposit account opening software and whatnot. What's your experience? And then, that's kind of where you are. And then on an internal perspective, we always look at the penetration, and that certainly has been a barrier to entry, if you will, of not knowing how much penetration that our customers are going to use. So we've tried to take it on the mentality of, hey, we didn't know how many would log into internet banking the first day either, or use the deposit taking ATM. But if you build it, they will come, as the old movie says. And so, you just have to, trust your gut, deal with peers, and then look at that penetration data, and then use the marketing of your bank to kind of get that story back out there, continually tell of your services, because it does become like Charlie Brown, just womp, 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 sometimes. And so you got to keep telling that story of what you're providing and how you can make your customer's life easier through your investment in fintech relationships.
Well, let's talk about a topic that I feel like sometimes seems like it's not as comfortable or addressed, which is the boardrooms of banks. And I think it's pretty fair to say that, the boards have a mixed amount of relevance and capability when it comes to digital and technology topics. What sort of encouragement are you giving to your peers, or even to the boards, to the extent you're in front of them, to say what they should be doing and thinking about, from even who's in the boardroom or board training or things, because this is moving probably way faster than most of them have anticipated, and most of them are part-time. They're doing other things.
Yeah, it's a great point, and you've got a limited amount of time that you're with them to kind of educate them on what is digital assets, what is CDBC, why are we opposed to that? And so I think I take it like compliance. Compliance in our organization, we try to make that everyone's job. We try to create a culture of compliance. And so you got to have that same mentality when it comes to your digital footprint with relationship with fintechs, is you've got to have everybody's in this game, and, continually educating the board of directors of, this is the problem that we're facing. This is the solution that we believe that we can bring to market to help us. And this is why it matters. And so, you got to keep it high enough that they understand the broad picture, but still go deep enough that they understand the why, why we're having to make this investment, and ultimately how this is going to pay off for the franchise value in the long run. So, selecting your next generation of board members is obviously important with that. I think it's good to have, diversity among your board of what you're trying to serve, what segment of the population that you're trying to serve, and what experience do those board members bring to the table. In this generation, maybe you do need someone that at least knows how to open up their internet banking app and check their balances or whatnot. So it's an ever evolving situation, but it truly should be management's job to keep the board of directors informed on the importance and why it's relevant.
Yeah, great point. I mean, it's like, just occurs to me. I go, well, just like we were talking about with bringing this next generation talent to the table sooner, you probably need to bring in potentially digital native board members sooner than you might think in this kind of environment. The other thing I think about is there an experiential requirement, or even a test that all board members have to be able to pass with regard to some of these digital experiences, just so they can actually understand them?
I don't think I'm going to wade off into that topic, but they're drinking from a fire hose every day. They come in, and they got such a great fiduciary responsibility. Hats off to all community bank board members across the country that are willing to do it, to give guidance and feedback and have the pulse of the community. And they do have to learn by trial and error sometimes, but it's always good to kind of look around and see, hey, who's using our app, and they also a small business owner, so that doesn't hurt either,
Absolutely.
But I don't think I'd want my board to take a test. No offense to my board, but
so beyond the regulatory challenges, which I don't want to underscore, what else do you see as the biggest threats to community banks in our country?
Well, it all starts with overregulation for me. Regulation is certainly the biggest impediment for the industries to succeed. So we've got to always promote for tiered and proportionate regulatory environment for us to be able to succeed. So that's number one. Talent recruitment is number two for me. Just making sure, especially in rural areas. I mean, I'm in a very rural community, and I don't have I've got a couple of colleges, but they're 2 hours away, and so you got to get to those junior colleges. You got to get to those higher level colleges, have conversations, and get bankers before them. In Alabama, we've got Bankers with Barbecue, where our state association puts on an event at all the different colleges in regions of the state to just get community bankers before those students, just to tell them about banking, what that's about or whatnot.
Really smart.
And it is. It just helps the banking field anyway. And then obviously technology is something we've always got to keep embracing. And things do move at the speed of light, it seems like, and so we've got to continue to think in terms of both offense and defense when it comes to those technology offerings that can keep us relevant for the next generation.
Does sort of market ambivalence concern you? I have great hope and even optimism that people are going to care more about where their money is going, how it's being used. Does apathy or ambivalence concern you at all if customers just don't care?
I don't. That doesn't concern me when it comes to the community bank franchise, because of the relationship model of business that starts from the boardroom to the management all the way down to the front line. Everybody really don't bank with community spirit. They bank with a certain teller or a certain CSR or a certain lender. It just happens to be that they work at Community Spirit Bank,
Sure.
And so you cannot replace that relationship between us and our customers. And I don't think that, at least in the community bank customer base, we will ever have to worry about that. They don't want to be banking directly with the federal government. We saw that with a $600 tracking mechanism that ICBA called attention to nearly 2 years ago, where they was going to monitor every transaction over $600. They showed right there that they are not in favor of the government dealing directly with them. So that should prove that CDBC shouldn't be a priority for the federal government or for the Federal Reserve. And I think they will always want to bank with those that they know and those that they trust, and that's a community banker.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they'll self-select, right?
Yeah.
The people who, if they don't value that, they probably will accept a suboptimal relationship experience. Yes. And so I think that totally makes sense. Well, let's talk a little bit about your bank specifically. I mean, you are a somewhat traditional community bank, and I'm amazed, as I said earlier, you are I feel like a traveler globally, but also very still active in your community and how you manage that. I'm always amazed. But you also are recognizing the changes that are happening, expectations and needs. So as you lay out a vision for the future of your bank, what is that? And then how is that driving your strategy specifically?
Well, our bank was founded on June 11th, 1908, 115 years ago this month.
Amazing.
And, I'm certainly proud to stand on the shoulders of many giants who have led this organization, who have been a part of this organization. As what I believe we have been a source of light and encouragement and support for the communities in which we serve. And when I, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, when I assumed the role of CEO and succeeded my dad in 2011, we were about $100 million in assets, just a small rural community bank. We still are. We're just $190 million in assets now. And so I've tried to always keep moving the ball forward and keep looking to how we could serve our customers more effectively, because it means nothing to be 115 years old if you're no longer relevant
Mm-hmm.
to your customer base.
Mm-hmm.
And so, implementing digital signatures during the pandemic quicker than we wanted it. But now most of my consumer and small business loans, the customer never walks in this bank. They text me, hey, I need such and such. I'm buying a dozer, I'm buying a skidder, I'm buying a whatever. We fix the paperwork up, we send it to their email, they sign it digitally, it's funded, it's deposited in their account, and they're a satisfied customer.
They're happy.
Come in,
they're probably happier.
They're happy.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so 10 years ago, that would have been foreign to us. We would have thought, no, that can't happen. There's too many risks. There's too much that can go wrong with that. But that's the new normal, and I'm excited for that. So, I always want to just keep moving the bank forward in that regard. Always with a focus on the customer. And I truly try to live by, and my team does well, that we're going to always be accessible, accountable, and responsive to our customers' needs. That's how I try to do my ICBA journey with our members. I wanted to be the same to all of our employees. I don't have an employee. Rebecca manages all of our employees, but I wanted them to know that, hey, I'm here for you as well, and our members, that I'm here for you. So that's things that I never want to lose sight of. Just to always keep trying to serve our customers with the best of our ability and always be accessible to them and certainly accountable to them as well. So I'm proud of our heritage, but I'm also looking to the future to make sure that we're here for the next 115 years and that the third and fourth generations of, my family or other families here are a part of this bank, because we are 58% ESOP owned and controlled.
Amazing.
We'll continue to make sure that this bank is independent for the communities in which we serve, because there's nothing better than local people making local decisions to benefit local people.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that topic, Brad, you talk about the communities that you serve. Historically, community has been a very physical, geographic type. We now have a much more digital world, and I'm not sure your bank, and I'm not sure I would encourage any bank to be delving into the metaverse yet. But as you think about community and that word and defining what that means for you, anything you see, whether it's the same going forward or different in how you might define that in your bank's future?
I think it all still comes back to a relationship tie to the community.
Sure.
I'm banking people who are living in Birmingham or who live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Sure. But their families are from here. They grew up here. They trust us, and so now through the use of digital technologies, I'm able to bank those people. Sure. I'm able to keep loaning them money. So I think at the end of the day, though, community to me is still that close knit people that we live, work, and play with and worship with here in our local area. So I can envision my bank ever taking deposits on a grand scale from someone that's 6 states away, but that's just me. That's just my bank's philosophy of what we believe community is, and it is just local people.
Yeah, which I think to me it's about the clarity is the most important thing. And to your point, somebody who maybe 15 or 20 years ago, if they moved to Chattanooga, they probably were going to have to sever ties with you and go to a different bank. Now they don't have to. And so they can still remain with you. They can still get all the services they need and still be part of that extended family. And I feel like that is expanding the community in a different way than you could have in a prior era.
Absolutely. I think it does come down to where was the relationship originally fostered. And, it allows us, we're in 13 area schools using financial literacy. We've got 2 in-school branches. And so those kids that are banking at our in-school branches, they're going to go on to do something else for their life, whether they stay here or they go off. And that is the cool thing, that they still get to bank with their local community bank, regardless of where they wind up in this world.
That's right. That's super cool. That's super cool. And that's a unique opportunity you have to meet them first.
Absolutely.
Well, let's finish today. I want to talk a little bit about you. You're a banker for sure, but also so much more, and that's come out in our conversation. what do you sort of lean on as your other primary interests to help keep you well-rounded?
Well, everything starts with my faith. I'm everything begins with that. That's where my worldview is based on my faith in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And so if I keep that as the foremost, everything else takes care of itself. Family being right behind that, because the first guards the second. I hadn't always done a great job of managing both of those well, because we're all balanced and a lot of balls in the air. But that is what my priorities aspire to be anyway. And that keeps me grounded. It keeps me, looking at my why. You hear of what's your why? Well, those are my whys. It comes back to the bank as well. This is a great family I get to be a part of here. And I truly believe that we as this bank are salt and light for the communities in which we serve, and can be a sense of encouragement to those who have no hope, those who are down and need a friend. Their local community banker is there for them. And so those things kind of keep me grounded. So I love to cook for my family. That's my favorite pastime, is gathering everybody around, cooking for them. I had my first grandbaby that was born last December. So that has put a new focus on family, even higher escalation. And I'm trying to sneak out of here maybe some afternoons to go play with her and the dogs, and then maybe I still wind back up here at the bank at night sometimes to finish up. But everything comes back to family, man, and that's where everything revolves. And truly, as this journey of being the ICBA chairman and going through the chairs, it's allowed me to have a even greater family across this nation. And no matter where I went, I found community bankers are just like me. They're serving their customers one relationship at a time. They're trying to do the best for their community, for their bank, for their families, and they're accountable to all of them. And so that's what inspired me the most, as I traveled across the country, was they're just like me. They're just in a different part of the country, So that's just who I am, and I'm just so grateful to have had this opportunity.
So much wisdom there, Brad. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I picked up a couple, but any habits that you sort of keep at the front of your mind that you focus on in kind of your personal development and leadership that you encourage others who maybe ask, how did you get here? How do you maintain this pace and this energy that you have?
I wish I could tell you I read all these books, but I hate to read. I read so much Revelation.
I appreciate that greatly. Yes.
So that's why I love podcasts. I'm able to listen to podcasts, leaderships, listen to 2 or 3 sermons from different preachers across the country. And so what truly keeps me awake and involved is just balancing all these things against my worldview. When I got involved in ICBA, I was, I'm 46 now, so I was around 35 back in 2011, and I went to my first national convention as an adult. And I was blown away at the energy, at the excitement. We were just coming out of the Great Recession. There was still a lot of overreach of the government that was coming in, trying to react again to big banks and big bank problems. And, I took it personally. And I came home and I wanted to just do my part to speak up. And so I was just a willing servant of the industry, and just kept raising my hand saying, hey, I'd like to get involved in that. And that's one thing that I would encourage community bankers to do. We as ICBA don't know you want to get involved unless you raise your hand or just, start showing up to events. And so that's really what I did. I just started pouring everything I had into community banking. And so ICBA gave me other opportunities to serve during that time. And, just the stars aligned. And I always attribute that the Lord opened doors and he closed doors. And he allowed for me to go through the chairs and to have that platform, to have that opportunity. And I truly just tried to be a source of encouragement to community bankers across the country, that if a rural country boy from Northwest Alabama who's got an accent that sometimes is hard to understand can do this, then anybody across this country has the same opportunity. It just takes passion. It takes heart. It takes respect for who we are as community bankers and what we do every day is protecting Main Street America. And so I love it. I've enjoyed my time, and I hope that somewhere along the road over these last few years, that someone was in the audience that felt the same way I did when I left that convention in 2011, that, man, I want to be a part of that. And I want to do my part to speak up and to protect this industry. And let's face it, there has never been a greater time to speak up and to protect our industry than right now. Mm-hmm. We cannot afford to let 10 banks control every aspect of our life. And the community bank franchise, which is unique to only America, is the only thing keeping that from happening. So from that alone, we've all got to just keep making our voices heard to protect who we are and what we hold so dear. So that was a long answer, Kerry, but that's me, man.
Well, I appreciate it. And I mean, there's a lot of gold to pull out of there. Raising your hand, that is not something that everybody does. Showing up is not something that everybody does. Servant mindedness is not something. So great. And I am very confident that you have unlocked and inspired many in your travels over the last couple of years, Brad, to follow in your footsteps. So really, really appreciate that answer. Final question, because I'm just super curious from the guy from Red Bay, Alabama. What would you say have been the favorite 2 places you visited over the last couple of years in all? And I'm putting you on the spot, I know, but what would you say are your top couple?
Oh man, there's been so many great ones because I'm visiting with the greatest people on earth, community bankers, everywhere I go. One that sticks out is always the Montana independent community bankers. But they have that tenacious, independent spirit. There's only 30 or 40 of them that is still independent, but they are thriving, man. They are doing everything they can to stay independent, stay relevant for their customers. And of course, I got to go to Glacier National Park while I was up there too, which was just unbelievably beautiful. Would go back again. And then if I put number 2, it would be when I was with the Community Bankers of Oklahoma. And one of the reasons there is because I got to meet with their Young Bankers Board. And as I told you, I been trying to, rev up that next generation of leaders. And if I had one regret during this journey, it was not asking to meet with every Young Bankers Board at every state that I went to. And because I got to do that with those folks and just have a one-on-one, it meant something to them because you had a national leader from the National Association that was wanting to meet with them. And for me, I was just inspired by the work that they were doing. And so, those are the 2 things that really stands out of my time across the travel. But it was all just unbelievable. We were welcomed with open arms from the community bankers across this country. I will always treasure my time on the road. It was just phenomenal and unbelievable. And so thankful for how everyone treated us.
I'm sure just an amazing experience, maybe except for some of the flight delays as I've had some of this recently, but absent that, what a great experience. And Brad, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your very clear passion for community banking. And thank you for all you do for this industry that, you and I both agree is so critically important to our financial system and our economy and everything that makes America, as unique as it is in this world. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for the partnership that you have as well.
Absolutely. Hey, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to have this time to share my experience, and just look forward to years down the road hearing other community bankers who went through the same journey, and that we're all still working together for community bank success, because that's the most important thing. And thank y'all for what you're doing to help our community bank succeed.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Operate Podcast. If you like this conversation, as a favor to me, you can rate us, review us, or subscribe, or tell your friends. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at Operate Podcast. Until next week, get out there and operate.